Hey, DHG here, and I'm doing my review for Return to Castle Wolfenstein on the PCXS2 emulator that you can download on PC. It doesn't take much graphical horsepower to make that thing run. I was able to do it on old graphics cards like, I believe I had a 970 GTX when I first downloaded it, and it ran fine. I was still playing 1080p back then, but now I have a 6700 XT. I'm an AMD fan, and I don't hear my graphics card whining or anything, so it's not being stressed. You can run it easily. And this is the PlayStation 2 version of the game. Obviously, there's a little small differences between the Xbox, PC, and the PS2 versions. In the PS2 version, they changed. I mean, if you watch the videos, you'll see that they changed some levels out, like, let me point out one in specific here. Wolfenstein. Yeah, this level. Let me out of here. This is the first level that you go through once you actually get abducted. Look. It's the administrative state. Indeed it is. They are Nazis. But this is the first level that you're in once you get abducted, and on PC and Xbox, this is completely different.
Put the other one up on the table and I'm gonna shock his balls too.
Now, you're gonna see I'm gonna go to my right at some point here. I'm sure he's fine. Yeah. Once I go through that door, I'll show you where one of the differences lied. There's a uniform back there. I never noticed that before. Okay, now on Xbox and PlayStation, PC, you turn left here, and that's how you go up the steps. But all this stuff, like this chemistry set or whatever that is, that door, it may or may not have been there, but you certainly couldn't go through it. But that's how you go through. I don't know why the developer, since this wasn't ported over by the same people that made the game, that was a different developer overall, they made some changes to this version of the game. Overall, I'd have to say that the changes didn't really change the way that you play the game much. It was just little differences. Kind of threw me for a loop playing through this, and that chemistry set looks a little out of place, but whatever, you know, Nazi mad scientists. So I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes of it. The graphics. First thing, since that's what most people care about. Being that this is a PS2 game, you're going to see some lower quality textures. That's the given. Like the book there, you might actually be able to read it from just looking at it like that in the modern game. Look at the wall textures in the background, it's all low resolution. You'll see a lot of that stuff, but when it comes to upscaling for the PS2 PCXS2 emulator, this game looks fantastic, especially for a game this old. I mean, I was shocked by first time I booted this up. Go to the desert levels here. I mean, just
I'm like, oh, what is this?
looking around at the sky. The buildings, how sharp everything looks. The sun, especially the sun, once you get up towards there, you see a lot of like lighting flare. It's amazing. The only other games I can say that look this good in terms of old PlayStation 2 games, especially when upscaled via this emulator, Mercenaries, Playgrounds of Destruction, and I'm suspecting, but I haven't played through it yet, I'm going to do it at some point, God of War 2. You looking forward to that one, huh? So in terms of graphics, this game was a knockout then. It's still great now. Obviously a little dated. I mean, it has been 20 years. Controls. I had to customize my controls. I don't have any of this on video. I mean, that would be a waste of time. But the default controls, I don't know how they had them set up. I have my own that were kind of laid out kind of Halo-ish, if you could call it that. But in terms of the dead zones and all that, the dead zones on this game, like most PS2 games back then, the dead zones are kind of high. I don't know why they did that. Because, I mean, I'm looking at my old PS2 controller right now, and when you play games on it, there's a lot of resistance within the thumbsticks and the cells, compared to, like, you know, the Series X controller, which always shuts off. Thanks, Microsoft, cheap bastards. But the the high rigidness of the thumbsticks for the PS2 plus the high dead zone led to some very inaccurate aiming, to say the least, and that's on full display here, even with a newer controller like the bring out the one that works when it wants to. But other than that, the shooting, interacting with objects, the only thing that I thought was really kind of inconsistent, which is par for the course back in those days, was interacting with ladders. I don't know what it was about the PlayStation 2 generation, even PS1. People could not figure out ladders. I would love to talk to a developer at some point from that period of time. Like, what's the deal with the ladders? I mean, now they work perfectly fine to have so for generations now, but back then, I'm starting to cough again. Great. That's from lifting, you know, all the grunts and all that stuff. Make homosexual jokes all you want. I don't care. It's all fun and games. Gameplay. This is a run and gun shooter. There's no aiming whatsoever. And throughout the course of the game, of course, you're going to get introduced to new enemies. Like, right... I try to leave every single time I die in the game, just because that can be interesting. But here, you have my favorite enemies. They suck your health down real quick. Oh. The lesbian death squads. That's per, what do you call it, canon in the game, where they talk about Helga von Bülow and her elite guard. They're all a bunch of lesbians in a covenant pact or some shit like that, so that's why I refer to them as the lesbian death guard. But they're the first ones you encounter that are a major pain in the ass. Then you encounter... V-base, here we go. You'll run into the Fallschirmjäger at some point. That's German paratroopers. Okay, that's not that level. Well, I certainly know they're in the sub-base. Oh yeah, here would be a good one. Because as they introduce new enemies, there are more dangerous enemies. Watch how quickly I get killed by them. Oh no, this was on the way back. Okay. See, I edited that and then I go straight to where I was in the gameplay and continue recording. But watch how quickly they kill you. I think there's a secret down here somewhere. Oh shit. Yeah, those are the Fallschirmjäger. They don't screw around. And here's one of the more iconic enemies of the game, the Ubersoldat. Not those. I don't know what those are called. Yeah, here we go. Kinda looks like the Doom guy. But not so fine. Yeah, I got my name on my shirt, you know, in case I forget. I still got any rocket rockets? Yeah, I got one. Yeah, this guy's armed with the
he's
Tesla
fucking
gun. It's the coolest gun in the game by far. Although they give it to you so late, you don't get to have that much fun with it.
That shit ain't
But
cool.
he fries me,
Took me off from that.
and they keep introducing you to harder and harder enemies throughout the game. I mean, it's pretty standard par for the course. Like I said, this is a run and gun hip shooter. You don't do any like down the sights aiming. This was before that became a thing. And I would argue that some shooters need to go back to that style of gameplay. Like, I was so glad when I saw Overwatch wasn't making everything the quick, aim down your sights real quick, because every shooter does not need that. I mean, come on. You could have a perfectly fine hip shooter like this, where you got some weapons that can be aimed down the sights, like Widowmaker's weapon and a couple other weapons in Overwatch, but it doesn't need to be every single weapon. I mean, yeah, it can give you a sense of more realism, but if you're going to go with a realism angle and you're talking about a game like Battlefield 5 or the Call of Duties, which are extremely unrealistic, you got people walking around in Grim Reaper uniforms, supposed to be in a World War II setting. But with Battlefield, they used to go with, I'm digressing here, but if you're going to go with a realism angle, just short and simple, don't. I'm going to move on to the next one. Sound. Sound was good. There was a lot of different sound effects they captured throughout the game. The different gun sounds and all that stuff. And it's to the point where as soon as you hear what it is, what's being fired at you, you know what the enemy's packing. And it was very good. One of my favorite things about this game in terms of sound was, let's see if I could find this specific thing. It was in the video I just got done recording about an hour ago before it went down in 8. Here she comes. Oh no, that's the dude. Okay, 2 of the guys down. Girl's still out there. Oh, there she is. Okay, it wasn't this one. I just heard him doing it in the background. You'll hear me mocking them throughout the entire playthrough of this. I just love the way they say it. It makes me laugh. But you'll occasionally hear the Germans say stuff, like either in German or in English with a really bad accent. It just makes me crack up. It was just a little, I guess you could say, Easter egg stuff like that is kind of there if you wish to see it. But if you don't, I mean, whatever. Whatever suits you. Whatever floats your boat. To each their own. The sound was very good. The music. There was a lot of catchy music tunes in this game. You had the music that would start playing during specific battles. You would have, the title screen, everything. It's stuff that'll get stuck in your head. You'll remember the music in this game for quite a while. Story. Not exactly in depth. The Nazis were trying to resurrect some old king of theirs. At first I thought it was Barbarossa. But no, it was turned out to be Heinrich I. I don't know who the hell that is. But you go through the game and you start uncovering more and more. If you read the documents, the story is obviously going to be a little more in depth, but from what you see without reading anything, it's just getting from point A to point B. It's a shooter first and foremost. Stories, or they're either secondary or tertiary, but certainly not up in the forefront. But there was enough there to make it a serviceable game to keep the narrative moving forward. So it didn't fail in that regard. Stability and bugs. For a game that came out in a time where there were no patches, there were no day one updates, most people weren't even online yet, so when you put that product out the door, it had to be as damn near close to perfect as it could get, and therefore, this game had awesome, superb stability and bugs. Not to mention, this was also made by a very powerful publisher at the time, Activision. They were strong then, they're strong now. So, little to no bugs. I haven't encountered any. My opinions. I really don't have any because the Wolfenstein franchise is, I think it's currently owned by Bethesda, if I'm correct, but Machine Games makes it. The last one they came out with was Wolfenstein Youngblood, which sucked just because it was all co-op based and it had a different like RPG like leveling system. I didn't like any of that. But you go back to the two previous ones they made with the New Order and the New Colossus, and if you throw in the DLC, the Old Blood, it was kind of like a standalone DLC. Hands down, one of my favorite DLCs ever. The Old Blood was great. They all kind of take what these games did. They make some reference to Wolfenstein 2008. Oh, yeah, let me grab that. Yeah, this sucker is kind of fallen into the annals of gaming history for only a set esoteric group of people to know what it was. But that was a good game. However, I don't think Activision had a very good idea for where they wanted the series to go, and so it got sold off. Like I said, I think Bethesda has it now. I'm not entirely sure. But Machine Games got it. They're a European developer, and they just did very well with it. So they learned from Return to Castle Wolfenstein a lot more than they learned from this. Although there are some references to Wolf 2008 here, most of what they do in the modern Wolfensteins are closer to this in terms of gameplay and how you interact with the environment and guns and all that. Still very cool. So, what would I give this game if I were rating it? How was my playthrough of it? It was good. It wasn't great. I mean, there are some things they could have done differently, like they could have added a multiplayer version to this game, but it would have been dead by now anyway. But I did get to play the multiplayer on PC, and it was a lot of fun, but as soon as games like Call of Duty 4 came out, Modern Warfare, this started to feel very dated. Although, I gotta say, if I had a time machine, I would like to go back in time to 2003, I think it was, when the consoles got their ports of the game. I'd love to go back in time and play Return to Castle Wolfenstein on Xbox Live with the original Xbox. Love it. I would love that experience. But my playthrough was good. And that's my review for Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Doesn't matter what platform you play it on, you're going to have a fun time.